Today on the Topping Show, Bud Light Manny Scorsese is a low score. DeSantis went viral for dropping out. Vivek says the FBI can't be reformed. Anheuser-Busch Hort tweet is so bad it's probably best to be taken out behind the barn. Hashtag Old Yeller. Mary Barra GM CEO has her 10-year anniversary at the helm of the company, and the comments are not so great. Ford to cut EV production of their truck yet again, and Costco and Sam's Club have to issue a recall due to the meat trays having a possible contamination. All of that and much more on the Topping Show. Thank you everyone for taking the time to tune in today. Today's episode of Topping Show is sponsored by Topping Technologies. Topping Technologies is an IT value-added reseller and services company with a special proficiency in IT security. Heck, I see their founder at least twice a day. Gotta say he's quite handsome and brilliant. He's me, you see, that's the joke. If you're an IT leader or a business owner, reach the team at sales@toppingtechnologies.com. Also trying to get to 4,000 subscribers by the end of January. So if you could click that button, I'd greatly appreciate it. Now, going over to the business part of the podcast, you have Mary Barra recently had her 10-year anniversary of being at the helm of General Motors. Many people say she's an innovator. She's brilliant. But the stock market, the sales, and the feedback from many employees are not so great. Now, in terms of the American dream, it looks like she is pretty impressive in terms of a couple of articles, one coming from Michael Wayland over at CNBC, noted that she actually worked her way up from the bottom of the company and hustled like hell. Excuse me. And a lot of people gave her accolades at the time for being one of the first female CEOs of the automotive community. And a lot of people are just giving her overall accolades. Now, she's also the individual who thought it'd be a prudent business idea to have the company go full EV for Cadillac by 2030 and full EV for the whole company, aka all four brands they own, that being Cadillac, Buick, GMC, and Chevrolet, all to be EV by 2035. That as the market continues to, what's a nice way of saying, kick that to the curb. In General Motors terms, leave it without wheels on cinder blocks is perhaps a more apt metaphor for the situation, as more and more consumers in the United States especially are looking at hybrid technologies for new vehicle purchases, and less are purchasing EV vehicles for a myriad of reasons. Now, in terms of their stock, one of the things where it's not a direct correlation in many cases. I mean, there are a lot of variables that contribute to the stock value of a company, but it is one of many metrics people use to evaluate how a CEO is doing. Now, in terms of the 10-year outlook, or rather the 10-year performance for the stock, looking at General Motors, again, she started around 10 years ago till 2014. Stock was around, what was it? It was about 40, let's see here. 2014, January 3rd, started at $39.57 per share. And fast forward to today, it's at $35.47 per share. So in 10 years, the stock has gone down 10.26%, which again is terrible, especially when you compare to pretty much all the other competitors. Ford is doing a lot better. You have, Tesla being another huge growing automotive company for American-based. They're always doing astronomically impressive, but the stock market is not that great. Another issue that came to her, kind of landed on her table, so to say, is the UAW contract. Well, that increased the cost per new vehicles by, I believe it was about $500 per vehicle in additional cost because it's union manufactured. That's a big issue as well. A lot of people are saying GM didn't negotiate aggressively enough. It is a record contract in cost as well as benefits. It's not just paying cash for the employees, but it's a myriad of benefits, some of which did contribute to General Motors going bankrupt in 2009, which I believe was their third bankruptcy since Billy Durant founded the company all those years ago when he brought together the two companies of Buick as well as Oldsmobile. Way back in the day, when I was going to say Oldsmobile has long been forgotten, unfortunately, for many people. So there's a lot of people starting to critique a lot of the decisions she's making. No, I was going to say also didn't help killing some of your most awesome products, most beloved products. They thought it was a good idea to kill the Chevrolet Camaro. And granted, their sales were decreasing. However, on average, over the past, I believe, 4 or 5 years, last year they did sell at a 2x rate compared to the previous year. Many people suspect it's partially because they knew it was going to be going away. But that was yet another reason they lost the Pony War. General Motors, they lost that. Ford won. The Mustang has never been discontinued, and it's still one of the very, very few options you can get in the United States for a new car with a V8 and a stick shift. And GM has acquiesced to the automatic transmission in most of their vehicles, with the only exception being the Cadillac CT4 and 5, and the Blackwing editions are incredibly feats of engineering. It's awesome. But of course, again, Cadillac's going to be full EV by 2030. So even the few astronomically impressive products that they make are going away soon. Now, some of the feedback in terms of the comment section comes from, let me see here. Let's see here. If I can scroll properly. One of my favorite websites where A+ for marketing, you know exactly what they're all about. The website is appropriately titled gmauthority.com. You probably know what they're going to discuss. General Motors. Now, one of the top comments comes from USA One, and they say, quote, "And hopefully her last year. To all the Mary fans out there, I want her to retire. I don't want anything bad to happen to her," unquote. They got 78, as youth may call it, upvotes, and only 19 downvotes for that particular comment. Another one comes from, the username is Hum. So Hum says, quote, "She drank the EV Kool-Aid, killed Camaro instead of updating, wasted money on self-driving cars, gave sedans up to Asia and Europe. Great resume," unquote. I got 89 ups and only 10 downs, which again is a very accurate observation. One of the biggest issues with General Motors was they pretty much got rid of all the entry-level vehicles, with the exception perhaps of being the Chevy Bolt. But a lot of the things, especially sedans and compact vehicles, you do usually break even, or in many cases you lose money on those vehicles. It's a very price competitive segment in the automotive industry, but you do build brand loyalty. When I was in the automotive community, it was almost a joke with the Chevy Cruze, though personally I loved it. I owned a Chevy Cruze Eco with a stick shift. Every car should have a stick shift by default, of course. But the dealerships, they'd lose around $400 to $500 per unit. The only way they broke even and made profit was good old financing and accessories. Now, the hope was they come back in, they buy a truck or an SUV or one of those big behemoths, because those, contrast is astronomical. Chevy Cruze, you lose like $500. Those you would make $5,000 to $10,000. That's how profitable those were. That was before you add financing and accessories. And a lot of people debate. I think there's some truth to the fact that when you buy an entry-level vehicle, many people do start to build brand loyalty. And that would help transition them so that when their budget increases or maybe their family increases, they'll buy one of those bigger vehicles that could more easily meet their needs. And again, GM got rid of it. They also are going all in on EVs. They spent countless dollars. Who was it? Mike Myers? What's the Austin Powers guy? That main actor. They paid millions upon millions of dollars having a Super Bowl commercial, was it last year, the year before, talking about how they'll go all in on EV. Which, again, the biggest issues with EV, not only are they not profitable for quite some time, because there's a big upfront investment, but also the category is decreasing. Consumers are moving away from it. And as I say, this winter has certainly helped show people some of the shortcomings of that technology, in addition to the current technology being disposable and proprietary like a smartphone. Again, there's always a caveat because this technology, the sodium batteries might be revolutionary. They might be able to charge a battery in 2 seconds tomorrow. But again, we're talking about what data we have at hand right now. And if you want a great vehicle that lasts you decades, you're going to buy an internal combustion engine, most likely Japanese engineering. Hard to beat an Acura or a Honda, aka that's the same company, or a Toyota or a Lexus, same company in that case as well. They just keep running forever. Now, nevertheless, we'll go back to the comments section, but 2 for 2, she is not doing good in terms of the comment ratio. Let's see here. The next comment comes from, Ricky, and it is about a paragraph and a half long, so I'm going to paraphrase here and read the first couple sentences. He says, quote, "Ultra low mileage transmission failures in and severe engine problems with GM's best-selling Halo vehicles, Chevy Silverado, GMC Sierra, and nothing to celebrate. The same problems with body-on-frame platforms, Mates, Tahoe, Suburban, Yukon, Escalade are not worthy of celebration," unquote. Which again, that is true as well. Again, the reliability with General Motors, it's been, what's the nice way of saying bad? questionable, a concern for years. And same thing with Ford. That's why Toyota is one of the most successful companies in history. They just run darn near forever. Same with Honda. My parents still drive a 2001 Honda Accord. Still works. They bought it new. It still runs like a champ. Now, it is unfortunate they got the automatic transmission. That was very boring. But nevertheless, it still runs. Now, keep going down to two or more comments here. Dennis says, quote, is GM better off now than they were 10 years ago? Asking for a friend. I got 44 thumbs up and 7 thumbs down. And yeah, a lot of people are responding to that comment, wholeheartedly agreeing with this individual. Jofa says, quote, she's nothing more than Roger Smith in his pantsuit. The company has been gutted from the inside out, and she's been part of it for more than 40 years. The market share of the company is pitiful, and yet she finds a way to keep the trajectory always pointing down. Barrera has overstayed her welcome by 8 years, unquote, getting 64 likes and 7 thumbs down, which is also another big point of contention with, I was going to say, people who root on General Motors or people who are employed there. What happened to the market share? The big three used to be It used to be Ford, General Motors, and Chrysler. They own more than 50% of the market of all U.S. car sales and truck sales, vehicle sales. And every year, it's just gotten less and less and less. And I believe it was 24 months ago, Toyota overtook General Motors for the top automotive manufacturer in the United States. It's been rough. I think GM did reclaim that back in 2023, but it's starting to show their weaknesses more and more. And let's see here. We'll do one or two more comments before we get to the small poll that we did as well. Let's see here. Kara Kadak, CA driver, all right, says, it's all one word, but nevertheless, this alleged California driver says, quote, maybe in the next 10 years she can fix the, quote, we can't get the parts to fix your vehicle, unquote. Dealers are telling soon to be former GM buyers when their cars crap out with less than 40K miles on them, unquote. Getting 43 likes, which, yes. Another issue with many of the newer vehicles is going to be long-term software development updates, as well as how do you repair something that's in many ways a glorified smartphone, and many of them are just by their very nature not meant to be actually serviceable. Now, interestingly enough, I did do a small poll on LinkedIn, and granted, the sample size is pretty small. I did let the poll go for 1 week, and it did only have 72 votes. So it's not a big sample size, but I thought it'd be still fun to talk about. And I simply said, it's been 10 years since Mary took over for General Motors. What do you think? With the 4 options being, she deserves a raise, her performance is adequate, she should get a pay cut, she should be fired. So those are the 4 options that I gave. And out of the 72 people who voted on this poll, 4% said she deserves a raise, 35% said her performance is adequate, 19% she should get a pay cut, 42% said she should be fired. Which, yes, so about a little more than 50% of people say she's no good. She deserves less money, or she should be given the boot. Or perhaps, instead of giving the boot, it would be a more apt metaphor for leaving General Motors, the automotive community. She should be giving a Geo Metro, perhaps. But, again, there's no signs. And again, maybe the shareholders will vote her out next time, but I'm not seeing a lot of external pressures really saying she should be fired or let go. If anything, they're giving her accolades for investing so much into EVs. But when I go to the comments section and kind of talk to people anecdotally, and I'm not looking at main publications, that's where I start to see a lot more critique of her, especially when I have family over in Michigan, and they're the mixture between people who work the front lines as well as the offices. And I mean, a lot of people admire her work ethic. She did start off, I believe she's at a stamping facility way back in the day, and she just worked her way up the corporate ladder, which is highly admirable. But a lot of these decisions she's making, I mean, there's a reason GM is in the business blunder section of the podcast frequently. I mean, one of the biggest issues she took over, or that she had to tackle or attempt to tackle when she took over, was the ignition issue, where they had to recall because the ignition switches were faulty. So your vehicle could just randomly turn off when you're driving it. So they're quality controlled. Again, I don't know. I'm not sure who's in that department, but that still needs to be overhauled because they still have these recalls. But it'll be interesting to see. I'd be fascinated to hear. Let me know in the comments. Do you think she should get a pay raise? Do you think she's doing an exceptional job. I mean, the stock market is down. They're losing market share. They are increasing the number of EVs that they're making, which are potentially will make a profit. There's a huge upfront investment. But as always, let me know in the comments. It'd be fascinating to hear what you have to say. Thank you, everyone, for taking the time to tune in today. Again, trying to get to 4,000 subscribers by the end of January. So if you click that button, I greatly appreciate it. Also, leaving a thumbs up or a thumbs down and comment is a great way to give me some additional feedback, letting me know how I can make the show better and better. Lastly, don't forget to take time to tell your family, tell your friends, tell your coworkers, heck, tell your enemies, tell anyone and everyone. Just stay safe, fight the good fight.